We play and call it work.
Hi there. Welcome to this week's Sit and Talk with me, Chris. For next week's video, it will be MiniWarGamer Steve. So any questions for him, leave in the comments down below. And of course, any responses to anything I say today, of course, you can leave in description down, or in the comments down below. And so let's just jump right into it. MiniWarGamer Josh, how do you paint a white line with a brush? HB13, Chris, what has been the largest freehand piece or piece you're most proud of? Thanks for making such helpful painting videos. They really help a newbie like me. The largest freehand piece? I haven't done a whole lot of freehand pieces. I've done like a lot of the shoulder pads, things like that. I'm going to assume that's what you're talking about. Otherwise, I do paint on canvas, and I work in oils. And I've done a lot of canvas pieces and things like that. I normally don't call them free-handed, but I mean, I assume that when we're talking free-handed, we're talking about free-handed designs like on, the armor, tanks, what have you, banners, stuff like that. I honestly can't think of anything. I recall once I was really happy. I had a plague bearer, and I was really inspired by a white dwarf that had the whole plague maw. It was like the big fly lord head, and it had all the flies coming out of the mouth, and I really, really enjoyed that. And so I had copied that banner, and I had done it for my plague bearer unit, and it was only like maybe a 2-inch by 2-inch kind of square. Made all the edges all ruffled and made it look like it was, tattered cloth and all rotten and stuff like that, and I was quite pleased with that at the time. That's about like maybe one of the largest things I've ever done. Really, I've never done like the hull of a warlord titan or anything like that. I don't usually do a lot of the freehanding in that regard. So I mean, it's not that I wouldn't do it. I mean, it's not the kind of thing that shows up in quick tips, because those kind of efforts usually take a while. And I mean, usually in quick tips, freehanding chapter icons and stuff like that can be done in a reasonable amount of time, but versus doing, trying to represent, the Last Supper on, a Titan's shoulder pad, that's going to take a little bit more time. I've never done anything like that, but, so, yeah, that's probably something. And that piece, I have no idea where that piece went to, that plague bear piece. I have no idea where that went to. It's lost to time, much the same as a lot of my other models. They're just lost to time, Anubis 45, Chris, also any tips on how to get a nice finish on my Tyranids? I often like a gloss varnish on the carapace. I often really like that. It gives them a nice insecty kind of look. Otherwise, iridescent mediums, go for like a beetle bug kind of look. You give them like, light blues and greens, stuff like that, and then give it an iridescent medium, and bang, it looks like, it looks like insect-like. I would save that kind of stuff for the carapace, where you got that harder surface, where naturally we're inclined to think of those spaces as, harder insect kind of like, and the armor parts, you can just do it in a similar color, or, you could also do that effect on those points, but otherwise, it's I like a shiny carapace on Tyranids. It just looks more insect-like, especially when you have like all the goo and blood and gore and stuff in the mouth and stuff like that. It just adds a whole level of character to the model. Nubus 45, Chris, just random, but I was watching a season 2 of the Blood Bowl when I noticed the guy standing next to Matt, when all of a sudden I recognized that it was Josh with his beard trim. I went, oh my god, I did not recognize him at first, laughing out loud. Okay. I don't remember which video that was. Bildrat, Chris, thanks a lot for pointing me towards your miniature painting 101 series. These videos are really helpful and I learned a lot. Anyway, I wanted to ask you about painting models before they are fully assembled. For example, the Space Marine Storm Ravens has a bunch of panels inside and clearly meant to be painted, but this would be considerably more difficult once the model has been put together. How common is it for you to paint parts of a model before assembly? It's not very common. When I'm doing my own kind of models, I often don't bother. Although, for example, I'm currently working on a Warlock Conclave for my Eldar, and I've left all the riders separate. I mean, I can pull them off, and just the way they're keyed, it's pretty easy to like pull them off and on without, man, you don't even have to glue these guys onto the models really. But I've left them separate so that I can paint them separately. But I know, like for a Storm Raven, I mean, you know, you just paint those panels, you know, just give them a quick prime, paint them up, and then continue on. The most important part when you're doing something like that, though, is to clear off the contact points where that bit will fit in with the rest of the model so that you can glue it properly. And of course, if you're using plastic cement, it's very key that you clear off those contact points so that you get a much better connection. If you're using cyanoacrylate super glue, you still want to clear off the contact points, but I mean, if you're assembling a big model like that with super glue, I really don't really recommend it. You're better off with plastic cement because you're basically bonding those parts together. Super glue doesn't bond parts together. It's a middle ground. It's holding on to both those parts. Very strong, and it'll hold for quite a while and may last the entire lifetime of the model, but I really don't recommend it. I recommend plastic cement for plastic models. Resin's a different story. You can use super glue and stuff like that, but yeah, plastic models, no, use plastic cement. And of course, the Miniature Painting 101 series, anybody who's brand new to this hobby, I highly recommend that series for anybody because it gets you comfortable with all the terminologies, anatomies of brushes, techniques, and stuff like that. It touches on everything, gets you very familiar with these things, because I know for a lot of new people into this hobby, a lot of these concepts are very overwhelming and, you know, can be quite scary for some people. So I do highly recommend that series. Just, you know, it's about a 20 part series I had done. It's in the vault. Miniature Painting 101. It's a complete beginner's guide to, you know, from cleaning the model to priming to base coating, highlighting, gets you into all these concepts. It's introductory, mind you. It's not a, you know, a full-on in detail how-to, but for new people, you know, I think it's very important that, you know, it's something like that should be touched upon. And last question, William Caw, Lord of the Monkeys, what do you think is missing from your view of your army, and what would you create for your army? Ooh, Eldar Army, I mean, man, I'm still missing like Dark Reapers and artillery, proper new artillery. I don't have Shining Spears in my army. Man, I mean, there's lots in my Eldar Army that I'm missing. Initially, when I was building up my Eldar Army to apocalypse scales, you know, I had you know, a lot of, you know, like you know, the Titans and the Flyers and stuff like that, and you know, I was building up towards that. But now these things are very common into the games, which is fun because, you know, you can incorporate all these really great elements into the game now, and you know. Is there really anything wanting? Right now, I'm just wanting to get my Warlock Conclave done. You know, Seer Councils, you know, had their heyday back in the day. Are they as powerful as they used to be? Most likely not. With the upcoming Codex coming out for them soon enough, will we see maybe them get a bump? Maybe. I think Destructor's a little too short-ranged, I think, for Eldar. I mean, you know, it represents that old Flamer template, but, you know, I don't know. Either give us something different for Destructor and give us Smite, or, you know, something else. I don't know. But I'm kind of looking forward to Eldar Codex and what comes out. Wraiths and Jet Bikes and Wave Serpent Spam really seem to be the meta for Eldar right now. I'd like to see a Codex come out and change that. You know, do Wave Serpents really need to get better? Not really. I wouldn't mind if they just dropped that whole shooting aspect of the shield. I don't know why they incorporated it. It was kind of a dumb kind of thing. It doesn't really need to be there. I think they should just drop it. Just keep the shield as it was. You know, in fact, I think the way the old fluff used to describe Wave Serpents was that they used to have that shield and it came in and it kind of like knocked people out of the way to disgorge the Aspect Warriors or whatever the Wave Serpent was carrying. I think something like that would be cool when the Wave Serpent goes charging into a unit, that it, you know, it does extra, or it pushes the unit back, or, you know, something along those lines where, you know, it automatically does something. The shield is knocking people back, not killing people. It doesn't have to kill people, but I mean, you know, it knocks them back. And I think something like that would be better, where they're just more like little battering rams for, you know, disgorging the troops. And I think that would be far more useful and interesting rather than giving them an extra shooting type, because Eldar already have a ton of shooting. they don't really aren't lacking in the shooting department in that regards. They don't need a shooting attack with that Wave Serpent shield, and so I'd like to see something else brought to the table for Eldar. And I'm sure, like, you know, anybody from GW who might be catching wind of this, who probably isn't, but that book is probably already well in development, and it's probably already off to the printers. And you know what I mean, like when they announced it, it was probably already proofread and, you know, sent off, I'm sure. So any changes I suggest is not going to happen, because I know, because, you know, it just takes time for these kind of things to come out. And so yeah, but I mean, like Eldar, yeah. But anything else I'm wanting? Revenants. I want Revenant Titans. I don't have any Revenants. I got a Phantom Titan and I got Wraith Knight and Wraiths and stuff, and I'm missing the Revenant Titan. And so yeah, unless of course, you know, they came out with like oh yeah, that was the other thing. Okay, if there was something that I really love to see from Eldar, is a proper battle tank. For example, Space Marines, they have the Rhino chassis, and the Rhino chassis can be a transport. It can also be the Whirlwind. It can be the Vindicator. It can be the Predator. It can be, you know, all these different configurations. Land Raiders, they have a big battle tank, and Land Raiders are transport. It's you know, it's got the Hurricane Bolters. It's got the Flamethrowers. You know what I mean? And there's different variations. The Eldar only have the Falcon, and the Falcon is like the Rhino chassis. It's got that transport capacity, and it has, you know, offensive capacity. It becomes a Wave Serpent, it becomes a fully transport. You know what I mean? And Prism has, you know, attacking ability, kind of like a Predator. You know what I mean? I'd like to see an Eldar tank that was like a Land Raider equivalent, not being super heavy like a Scorpion or a Lynx, but, you know, something along those lines. I'd like to see like a proper battle tank for Eldar. I think that would be really cool. But that was all the questions I had. So next week is MiniWarGamer Steve. So ask your questions down below. Of course, if it's in response to what I said today, you know, leave it down below. Of course, I read these comments, and yeah, happy wargaming, and I'll see you guys later.